become an indigenous trans person overnight like that.
Do you know if I have a vagina or not?
You seem to think that you could snap your fingers and free Iran. It doesn't work like that.
No, I don't want you. I don't want you to go yet. Stop.
Yeah, you don't want to talk to me because I just nailed it.
And welcome to the Dr. Dapp Show. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Dapp, and today we're having a conversation with one liberal and 20 conservative ladies. Kyla chose her own prompts. She will be sharing them. What is your first prompt, Kyla?
My first prompt is Trump supporters have abandoned all conservative values.
Okay. Anyone who wants to have this conversation? Anyone there?
Hi, guys. I'm Kyla.
Hi, I'm Dominique.
Hi, I'm Kathleen.
I'm Daniela Bloom.
Alexis Miranda.
Cool. So to prep for this, I basically went through a list and I said, how is Trump not conservative? And I just want to kind of count some of the ways that I think that he is not conservative. So he swears on the Bible as a political stunt, never attends church. Who's his pastor, by the way? What church does he actually attend? Does anybody know? On his third wife, I think, and has children with all previous ex-wives. But mentioning women, he cheated on his pregnant wife with a porn actress and then paid her hush money in a 2016 election, which resulted in felonies against him. But he doesn't stop there. He actually, speaking of mistresses, he has 8 known mistresses, and that's not including the teenagers on Epstein Island. He has centralized power underneath the executive branch more than any president in modern history. He has increased the federal debt by $2 trillion while lining his own pockets with $1.5 billion. Only really clear example of insider trading than Dan Crenshaw and Nancy Pelosi is Trump himself. It's pretty impressive. And he's weaponized the DOJ and violated states' rights over and over and over again. So I'm not actually sure what he's conserving at this point. I don't even know what Trump is conservative about. Any ideas?
Well, Trump is the head of the MAGA party, America First. Conservative values are, first of all, the family is the most important institution in society. The Democratic Party, and particularly white liberal women, free sex feminism, sexual liberation, mass immigration, illegal aliens. This is breaking up families. They've been pumping this since the 1960s.
Sure, liberal's gonna liberal, but the thing you actually have to defend here is that Trump is conservative. Wait, did you guys vote for Trump? That's by a show of hands. Who here voted for Trump? Are you guys all conservative?
Definitely.
Okay, so what is Trump conserving for you guys? I don't care what liberals are for you. How is he conservative?
Oh, well, hey, listen, you said you feel like Trump supporters have strayed away from conservative values, right?
I voted.
But that is the prompt. So as a Trump supporter, I'm going to tell you how I align with conservative values, because you just gave me a laundry list of something that a flawed human has done. I don't see Trump. And let me just tell you, I'm a black woman. I got good people in my family. I got killers in my family. Half the people in my family on my mom's side, the men are locked up in prison.
Would you point to them as that's a conservative man that I would vote for?
But let me just say what I have to say. You just gave me a laundry list of something that a flawed human has done. I'm going to tell you, as a conservative, the values that I align with as a conservative. Number one, family structure, tradition, upholding traditions within society. That is very important, so that we stay structured and that we have boundaries in society. We need that. I know what a community is like when it doesn't have a foundation, a core foundation of tradition. But these are the conservative values that I align with, that I feel like Trump and the administration and the things that they are enacting and activating, to me, those things protect certain things, like just the basic things, like a man and a woman.
What does that have to do with
everything? That literally is the basis, is the nucleus of the family.
And men and women
so when you, but when you try to confuse people on what just the basic things of life are as a man and a woman, like, to me, you are literally undoing a basic foundation of
marriage,
of society.
Trans people existing, or cheating on your wife 8 times while she's pregnant with porn actors.
Girl,
what do you think is like worse?
Like, you're sitting here talking about somebody cheating. I mean, people cheat across the aisle. I'm not saying that I condone it. So family structure is important to
How
me.
is he doing?
Upholding traditions
How is he
within
doing?
society, the fabric of society is important to me. Limited government is important to me. And uniting everything under the executive branch, to me, that goes back to being a republic. That is close. Yeah,
That's the opposite of a republic.
no, it's not, because
Yes,
literally with
violating the
everything
10th
being
Amendment
all
is
over,
the opposite of
with
a republic.
everything being all over the place, and you letting bureaucracy run wild. Literally, all these different sects and fashions, they have all this power and control, and we're in just a bunch of confusion. So I align with some of the things that he's doing in that respect. Let me see, core values of conservatism. I like financial conservatism, being financially conservative for the individual. I believe in individual responsibility. That's a conservative. That's a conservative value that I align with. You said that we're not aligned with conservative values, and I'm telling you what I align with. I don't believe in endless welfare social programs. I see what they do to communities. I see what they've done to the Black community, which is my community. And that's so again, individual responsibility is a very conservative thing. I think that the Trump administration aligns with that value.
So again, I hear the things that you value, and I believe you that you value these things. What I'm saying to you is, if you're a Trump supporter, especially right now to this day, do you still support Trump?
Okay,
or
this might
not?
be wildly
I don't
unpopular,
support
but
everything. How you doing?
that are in the running sphere that I just simply cannot. I'm sorry. This is going to bring everyone out and get all upset, but I hate these rules. Rule number 1. You can only race twice a year. You can only race 3 times a year. You can only peak for 1 race every 6 months, 8 months, whatever. Stop. Seriously. If you do the right mileage, and you do the right pacing, and the right intensity, you can race a ton. Like, there's no rule that says you can only peak for 1 marathon a year. I mean, like, granted, like, you are going to be a reflection of the body of work that you do. Okay, so if you were doing a lot of mileage and you're able to stack that up and, like, do it pretty injury-free, like, race more often. Also, you don't have to do a race and, like, go full throttle, like, 10 out of 10 effort level. Like, do races as part of your hard runs. Do races for fun. Do races with your kids. Do races to go run by yourself. Seriously, just stop taking these rules off of, like, how frequent someone can or cannot race. Like, why can't we or what is actually asking for instead of go full throttle, like 10 out of 10 effort level? Like, do races as part of your hard runs. Do races for fun. Do races with your kids. Do races to go learn something about yourself. Seriously, just stop taking these rules off of, like, how frequent someone can or cannot race, because it's just yes. Number 2, you have to take a rest day every 6 days and 7 days. It's like some formula for the day that I have to take a rest day. Here's a rule from Great Coach Megan. Take a rest day when you need to. How about that? You know? Or change your intensity. You know, slow down. You need to stop for a day, stop for a day. But why does it have to be on the calendar? Like, why can't it be a reflection of what your body is actually asking for instead of the date? It's so weird to me. Like, I take a rest day when I need a rest day. I don't take a rest day when I feel like I don't need it. It's crazy. Rule number 3 that we are just throwing out the window right now. Carbon-plated shoes are only for fast runners, only for races. Come on. Seriously, anyone can wear a carbon-plated shoe. You're not going to implode, okay? Like, I think that the key with shoes, and this is just my little opinion, is variety is the spice of life. So, like, have a couple of carbon-plated, have a couple non-carbon-plated. Every time I go to my shoe rack, I pick out a different pair. My rule is to never wear the same pair of shoes for 2 months. Like, just keep moving things around. If you want to race in a carbon-plated shoe and you are a 5-hour marathoner, do it. Just seriously, have life. Live. Go do things. Crazy. I don't think that that's going to either speed you up or slow you down. I think it's just going to be an expensive way to feel very confident, and you deserve it. So do it. All right. Okay, this might be wildly unpopular, but here are 3 rules that are in the running sphere that I just simply cannot stand. I'm sorry. Everyone out get all upset.
Your values. Hi there. So I'm a former Democrat, and the Democrat Party has gotten so haywire that I find myself way more comfortable aligning with conservative values. And you brought up the Bible.
Let's talk about Samson and King David, who were flawed individuals, but turned out to be incredible leaders. I'm not picking my president based on his human flaws. And by the way, did you know that he has fantastic relationships with each of his ex-wives? All the children get along. You just look at his children and grandchildren and how they absolutely adore him. You cannot say that about the Biden family, but I don't even want to split hairs. The bottom line is, what Trump has brought back to the American people is peace through strength. And when you have accountability, and you understand that diplomacy doesn't often work with bad actors, but deterrence does. I feel safer under law and order. I feel safer under accountability, and I am a Trump supporter all day.
Do you feel safer knowing that the FBI had to release a statement that Iran was setting up drones to attack the coast as a result of this?
So I think
do you feel safer or less safe?
So I think the FBI and the DOJ have a lot of corruptions under both administrations.
You just lied about that?
No, I mean, again, you're not responding to what I think.
What do I need to respond?
Yeah, so peace through deterrence. Trump was
Some
handed
questions
a mess
regarding the match.
in 2024. Biden lifted sanctions of Iran. October 7th in Israel never would have happened.
Actually,
the
Trump
war in Ukraine and Russia.
Hold on, Trump lifted the sanctions from Iran.
No,
he let the JCPOA.
No, and
yes,
what is the reason? Okay, let Dominic take this. This is her.
It was actually the Biden administration. It was in 2016. So with the hostage exchange, 6 million.
Thanks so much for answering our question.
And then 10 million from Iraq were lifted.
So the JCPOA was pulled out of by Trump.
Yeah, but that's totally different.
That's the sanctions that we're talking about.
No. That's the legacy of the Obama administration. There was an expiration date and there was on a renewal. So those are two separate things.
So Trump pulled out of the JCPOA,
but that's not
which was the sanctions. Those were the sanctions that were holding them accountable and making sure that they didn't develop.
No, that wasn't sanctions. It was a series of checks and balances for the regime. Which
why did they agree to those checks and balances?
Because Obama released $1.7 billion to the regime. They never complied with the JCPOA. That's why Trump didn't pursue renewing it. There was a clause that ended. They didn't renegotiate for it. So Trump didn't end it. There was no renegotiation. The sanctions that were lifted were under the Biden administration.
So I'll continue on law and order. Did you know that in 2025, crime has drastically decreased in record numbers? And that is not by accident. When Trump came down hard in cities like Chicago, DC, and New York, police refunding works. Law and order works. It protects all Americans.
Did you know that crime has been decreasing steadily every single year since like 1960?
You can't ignore the drastic drop.
Does that not matter? Or?
No. It's actually not true. It's not. It has been studying. That's
true.
In many black neighborhoods like Chicago, it's literally kids can't play outside. So I'm sorry that you live in a bubble and you don't understand the suffering in certain communities.
My husband lives in a homeless shelter, so I prefer that not be
a homeless shelter.
Yes, a homeless shelter. So I hear that you guys have some central conservative values that I believe that you guys genuinely hold. The problem is, I don't know how you hold them and simultaneously support Trump. I'm not saying become a Democrat. I'm saying if you have these conservative principles, like so many conservatives, you must be anti-Trump because he isn't fulfilling limited government, family. He's not really fulfilling law and order. He's not fulfilling federalism.
First of all, you suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. You are obsessed with Trump. Trump is the figurehead for MAGA, but that's not all.
President?
Wait, first of all, you keep interrupting me, and that's why you have Trump derangement syndrome.
That's not why. I actually am interrupting because we talked about how last session everyone was monologuing, so I'm interrupting to move the flow. I can interrupt less if everyone would prefer, but I'm interrupting because of the result of the law.
As a Black American, there's no way I could support the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party destroyed Black American families, which I was trying to discuss before, pumping free-sex feminism. White liberal women need to take responsibility for pumping free-sex feminism, sexual liberation. The Democratic Party destroyed Black America by pumping mass immigration, illegal aliens. We know the data on this since the late 1800s. Mass immigration destroyed Black America. The reason why I support Trump, he's mass deportation is a good thing.
He supported
but for liberal women.
Thanks for pointing that out.
But for liberal women.
I'm not for open borders. You probably shouldn't assume.
But for liberal white women in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, precluding ICE from deporting illegal aliens, getting in the way. Liberal white women have destroyed Black America since the 1960s, and we've had enough. Black America has had enough of it. And Trump, listen, liberal, progressive policies.
I'm not talking about liberals. I am talking about Trump.
Yeah, because you're suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. You're suffering from, yes, because
all of your values.
and we said the most important value is the traditional family. Liberals believe in transgenderism.
I don't need you to be a liberal.
Right. But
So
you're
stop making the argument.
But
I'm not trying to say you should all be liberal.
No, but you're taking Trump as an individual, as the leader of the MAGA party.
Republican government?
Yeah, you're taking...
Probably embodies some of the things that we're talking about, at least policy-wise, right?
Incentivizing tax. He's getting IVF to be covered under home insurance. That's supporting families.
Love his tax
okay, wonderful. The other thing is in the tax credits, every time there's a new baby, it's a $1,000 tax credit. How is that not supporting families?
I think
that is not encouraging.
I think that's a small level, but I would say one thing that's not helping families is completely destroying the economy through a tariff system that he's utilizing the last pocket and increasing increasing debt. You're right. And in a single year, did you know? Here's a crazy fact. It's from JFK all the way to Trump's first president and Biden. Trump has lined his pockets. He has made more net worth growth in 1 year, 5 times the entire cumulative wealth growth.
Salary. He doesn't need to do his homework.
So first, obviously, because you're able to prep with stats and stuff, when you say a sweeping generalization, can you cite some of your statistics? Because I'm not aware of like the crime rate, so I think that's reflected in the stats. However, I can say Pew, and I can say the sun is like orange or
Pew Research Center. Sorry, when I say Pew, I mean Pew.
I know Pew Research, but I could cite something random and say I found it at Pew. That doesn't make it.
Well, you said cite your sources, so I thought you wanted.
Yeah, but who's the author? When was it?
I don't know specifically. Does anyone ever memorize Pew Research?
Well, if you're going to cite a statistic, that's probably
it's not usually. If you say who has your source, and I say Pew Research Center, you can now further narrow it.
The claim is zero sum. It's that MAGA has abandoned, or Trump has abandoned all conservative principles. But I don't believe that's to be true. So tariffs, for example, bringing economic industry back to the United States, conservative principle. Reestablishing deterrence, peace through strength, conservative principle. The family, the tax cuts, IVF as an example, conservative value, family values. Reinstating deterrence with the border and deportation. Those are all conservative values. So you can't say Trump has abandoned all values. I can concede that there's some that I might not agree with, but that's not the prompt. The prompt is zero sum. And going back to President Trump, he's a flawed individual. We could cite every politician going back 20, 30 years. I don't think any of us probably would sit down and be friends with a politician.
Mike Pence is a great example of a Republican who actually stands by his conservative values, right? He's dedicated to a monogamous relationship, so much so that I don't think he has lunch with other women, right?
Yeah, that's fact. But that's not the
Trump
claim.
When he tried to breach the Constitution.
Right, but we're not talking about the infallibility or the fallibility of Trump. You're citing he can't be conservative because of his past, which most of us here are Christians, so we would also say...
Shouldn't we a little bit? Your guys' criticism of Biden is that his family's broken, which is why he's not for connected families.
No, I don't like Biden because he destroyed our country domestically and through foreign policy.
We had some of the most aggressive economic growth under him. He pulled us out of COVID fantastically.
No way.
No, the global economy happened to bounce back.
America bounced back better than every single nation in the world.
Going back to things that are important to me, there are things that the Trump administration is doing that do lend into traditional conservative values. So again, the premise being has abandoned all conservative values, I find to just be false from the jump, because it is so zero sum. And I don't think you could point to any politician or any political movement and make that claim, because we're all complex individuals who have our own interests. So I just think that the claim off the bat is kind of set up for failure.
I just want to speak in simple terms, just simple, real terms. For me personally, conservative values for me personally, before Trump, the administration, what I saw was children confused about their gender. I work at a junior high school. What I saw was people who didn't see the value in boundaries and limitations. I saw people doing crime, going in, getting out because of liberal policies, or lenient policies, people coming back to the streets, being re-offenders in brown and black communities. I saw, it just felt like chaos. I see black people getting displaced in LA by undocumented people. And black people whisper about this. This has been happening for decades. And so this is what I saw. And I saw Trump leading a movement that had solutions to those problems that I see around me every single day. I know you got statistics and you got your facts, but I'm giving you the real, what's happening on the ground and what's important to me. And I feel like Trump and how he moves and what he's activating, I feel like those are solutions to the real problems on the ground impacting the people that I touch and I care about and I love every single day. Because Biden, that administration wasn't doing it, period.
When I say that you've abandoned all conservative values, what I mean is that you have historically, as a conservative movement, for example, isolationism. That's not like a conservative position at all. In fact, most neocons were very for aggressive global trade because it's good for America to do global trade. What we're talking about, limited government. Consolidating power to the executive branch is the opposite of everything that's in the American Constitution. That's what the 10th Amendment is about. It's called federalism, state rights. Violating states' rights. For example, during the shutdown, Trump took away $11 billion in federal funding that was only going to blue states to squeeze utilizing the people, his people, because he's the president of America, not of Republicans. And he squeezed blue states to try to force the end of a government shutdown. He will actively weaponize Medicaid, Medicare. He is currently threatening to throw out TSA agents and just replace them with ICE at airports because he doesn't care about the common man. He doesn't care about fiscal responsibility, hence our debt going up by $2 trillion, by the way. And talking about fiscal responsibility, he has played insider trading. He bragged about the fact that two of his friends, when they did some sort of insider trading in February, I think his exact quote was, "This guy made $2.5 million and he made $900 million." And I need you to understand, those people are taking the money from American taxpayers and people involved in the stock market. That's bad. That's fundamentally bad. And if you're conservative, please, rule of law, you should be asking questions about these. If you care about smaller government, him consolidating power is the opposite of it, right? You want fiscal responsibility? He's not your guy. You want good, respectful relationships with our allies, which has been a consistent conservative position as well. Trump doesn't have that. And yeah, his family dynamics, no, they don't reflect anything Christian, because he's not, or anything to do with conservative nuclear values. This is why he brags about how hot his daughter is, and if she wasn't his daughter, he might get into a relationship. He's done this. He's done this behavior. I think it's very telling when the reply to my criticisms, and credit to Trump, by the way, is just that I have TDS. How can I have TDS if I can acknowledge?
We'll just grab a minute of your time for a few questions.
It's empty and thought terminating. And there are things that I can look back, especially at his first presidency, that I think liberals are very deranged about. Warp speed was fantastic. He did multiple tax credits. But there isn't a conservative policy.
No further questions, thanks.
A single thing. He has made so many executive changes and whatnot. There isn't anything conserved. And even his own family is conserved or conservative.
He did a great job with his family.
I don't know if this happens to you, but I'll do a full face of makeup in the morning and love it. End of the day, that works like smoke butter. That's exactly what led me to.
My second prompt is: feminism is moral, necessary, and inevitable. I'm Sophia Lamar. Nice to meet you.
I'm Jean Dubriel. Nice to meet you.
I'm Jessica Aranda.
Lori Mills. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys. My prompt is, there's probably not much to expand. You guys can ask me questions. I think it's moral, and then necessary and inevitable are kind of tied together. So there's a moral claim and then a economic, functional claim.
So my question to you, thank you for being here to debate all of us. I appreciate you coming and just asking some questions just for clarity. I would say, who do you think mostly benefits from feminism, and then who is included in feminism?
Do you mean intersectionally?
Just in general, what people, and then who's included under the umbrella of feminism?
Women disproportionately benefit from feminism. I don't know if you mean intersectionally, white women are going to benefit more from feminism oftentimes.
Just whatever your thoughts are.
Yeah, so I think women benefit more from feminism, what it's for. That makes sense. And intersectionally, I would say white women disproportionately, because feminism has not historically done a good job of dealing with racial elements within a feminine experience. That's why I'm more of a fourth wavist personally. I think it does a better job addressing these issues. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you for clarifying. Because I, obviously being a conservative, I do believe in equality for women. The thing that has been very difficult for me in the past maybe 10 years has been the inclusion of trans women under the umbrella of feminism. And I don't know, because some people don't even believe that trans women should be under that umbrella, and some do. I would like to know your thoughts if you're comfortable sharing that.
Yeah, I'm willing to include them. I think there's an intersection for trans women.
Okay, because for me personally, I feel like there's male, female, and then I would say there's almost like a other category where for us, there's been, and you know this in the news, where you see spas, gyms, there's a lot of women who don't feel safe in women's spaces. And because of the inclusion in trans women in the feminist movement, so I would say as far as moral, the basis of being treated equally, totally agree with you on that. But I feel like the extremism of what it's become nowadays, that's the problem that I have with modern day feminism. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
To make sure I'm understanding, are you saying that it's not moral if it includes trans people, or are you saying trans people pose a unique issue for feminism to disentangle, but broadly feminism is morally good? I just want to make sure.
I would say morally, the modern extreme version of feminism wouldn't be immoral, especially with what has been included, a lot of perversity, a lot of promiscuity, honestly. And I'm in the entertainment industry, so there's a lot of the Me Too movement. There's been a lot of objectifying of women, which I disagree with, but I feel like even nowadays it's become this horseshoe where women are now objectifying themselves in the name of empowerment, and I'm not really good with that. As a Christian who believes in modesty. So that's kind of where I stand with it personally. I'm sure we all have different views on this, but I just wanted to share that.
Yeah,
if you had any
I think you're pointing to like complicated issues within feminism, right? So when I say feminism is morally good, I'm talking about like my definition, which I think most people would agree to, which is feminism is the empowerment of women's agency and the promotion of femininity, right? And so are there bad elements of feminism? Yeah, I don't love that suffragettes were racists. Not good, right? I don't love that third wave feminists were just like, we're gonna be men now. Women, things are bad. And it's like, it's not bad to be a mother. Actually, it's super cool and amazing and wonderful.
Hey, I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so are there like complexities to the feminist movement that have to be like shaped up? Of course there are. Just like there are Christians who I think engage morally poorly and have bad moral thought about Christianity. That doesn't take away from the broader movement. I would need it like evidence that the broader movement isn't for a moral good, which is the promotion of women's agency.
Okay, thank you for that.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I agree with you. I don't agree with the with sectionality or whatever that you would call that. I'm more in agreement here. But I do think that feminism in its higher sense, maybe even its most moral sense, the biblical sense, is when I think of Jesus and how he dealt with women, how he acknowledged women, he allowed women to be disciples, included them in his ministry. He gave women something that in the ancient world had never existed before. So I agree, I think, on the premise. I also am a little concerned when I see the liberal movement, at least there's these questions in modern feminism, which, was brought up here about the transgender issue. And then also just I'm watching what I consider it seems like the Democratic Party or liberalism is embracing like the Islamic oppression of women, in the sense that what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of oppression in Iran. We've seen women be killed that, just showed a little bit of hair. This is where where I feel the issue being moral feminism. I see that when I look at Iran, that women should be free to express themselves.
Iran should be more feminist.
Right. So I think we're in agreement, minus, some of the more extreme issues. But
it depends on if I hold them, though, right? Like,
right. If you don't hold them, then
Islam. I don't think Islam is like this paragon of feminist virtue. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things.
But it is a little disturbing to see that in the progressive movement and with liberal women embracing this kind of.
Well, this is pluralistic, right? I can simultaneously value and have a fundamental value of feminism and also value things like religious freedom, and understand that these two things are in tension, and finding the perfect policy and answers is tricky. But I think there is one, right? I want Muslim people and Islamic people to come here and express their religion, but not at the cost of like abuse of women. And I think that that's a common tension we've had through all of history, even with Christianity and kind of liberal order. And so I'm willing to have those conversations, but I don't think that feminism just loves Islam and everything to do with it. Lots of feminists are critical of the way that Sharia law or the Quran speaks and engages with women.
Well, then I think we are in absolute agreement on that. So
morally good, and
I appreciate it. As long as also that women have the freedom to choose, motherhood, traditional values, should they like it, and not feel judged by that. And also that economic situation is also of feminism has kind of pushed women into basic market production because they can't afford to not be. And I
don't think that's feminism that did that.
Well, in a way, because in a sense, when one paycheck can't support a family, and you can tax that other paycheck, it by default you push women into work that may or may not. Now, I will tell you, elite women have always had the ability or the privilege, you could say, of not having to work, but poorer women have always had to work, and I think that that feminism should include motherhood and value.
I would just say to you, basically, like, women have always been working, we just didn't get paid for it, right? And so what's transpired, liberals have gone, it wasn't really liberals, it was the inevitability of war, of just needing labor. But what happened after that is going, actually, if I'm working, I should be paid for my labor. And if I'm getting paid and taxed on my labor, I deserve representation, right? And I think all of these things are an inevitability that occurred. I don't think feminism is to blame for like World War II causing major labor shortages and gaps and like women having to step into these roles. I don't think feminism has to do like anything to do with like world order and like global GDP competitiveness that you need to have all working adults working.
So for the moral standpoint, how is feminism moral to you based on the results of feminism in modern society?
It promotes agency. And agency as a Christian is like one of the most important things to me in the moral precept.
Like free will?
Choice.
Okay, so when the results of feminism are disproportionately against the results of childhood outcomes, raising and the maltreatment of children by over 70%, especially in single mother households, which feminism actually promoted with no-fault divorce after the 70s. It actually, you could say like it was mothers putting themselves before their children. And I think that is actually putting the most vulnerable community and most vulnerable civilians in harm's way just for autonomy, which I think
take their choice away?
Which I think is false autonomy.
Well, the alternative is taking their choice away entirely, right? Like, I agree that when you...
What choice?
Yeah, more succinctly, I would rather give people the opportunity to be good and noble. Because if you don't get to choose, you don't even get to choose nobility. This is the fundamental premise of Christianity, is that fallen nature and the suffering that we see in the world must exist, because if it doesn't, then when we say, I love God anyways, it doesn't mean anything. And so I agree, women, children, men, they make bad choices all the time. All people do. But the beauty and nobility of agency is that people get to make it. And what the alternative is robbing women of the choice so that they are essentially slaves to like moral good as necessity. I don't want that.
But what choice? Because women were always able to leave divorce, at least in America, for abuse reasons or sexual assault reasons, or their children were being assaulted. We were able to do that before no-fault divorce.
Not really.
And even by the church, in the Bible, it is allowed for abuse. If you are being abused in your marriage, then the Bible actually condones divorce, which is one of the things that...
Marital assault wasn't even recognized legally as abuse until like 1980. It was in the same thing in 1984. It wasn't even like
assault or marital rape.
I'm trying to avoid that word. Sorry. I'm trying to avoid that essay word. I don't know if you guys want it. But yeah, marital rape was codified as a crime in 1994, right? So the idea that like women could leave, it was incredibly difficult. Their finances were entirely tied to their husbands. A lot of women could not work, right? So the idea that they like could just leave, they were in many ways financially tied to men. And no-fault divorce, but also divorce, there are tough things. How do you prove that somebody is like mentally braining you and not supporting you and not fulfilling all those things of a husband, but isn't necessarily like leaving you black and blue? Does she have to stay in that relationship? What if she's not a Christian? Why does she have to stay in that relationship?
Well, I'm going to take this from another standpoint. I think the feminism of the 1950s, 1960s was needed. I think that it has morphed into this abusive, it's not about women anymore. All it did for us was put men in our bathrooms.
I would totally
And men are not women. I don't care how much you want to dress up. I cannot become an indigenous trans person overnight like that.
Do you know if I have a vagina or not?
I'm sorry?
Do you know if I have a vagina or not?
Honestly, I don't want it in my business. My point is, keep your own freaking sexual business to yourself. Now,
true. That's trans people are trying to.
People.
Yeah.
And they have taken over the feminist movement. I also believe that they have put, you have to go to college, you have to go and get this career before you have a family, where then we have women that are 30, 40 years old and they're miserable. They're on more antidepressants. It has hurt the family. The feminism of today is not the feminism of yesterday. And you keep speaking of choice. What choice are you speaking of? Are you speaking of choice to get a job? Are you talking about choice to get married? What choice do you keep bringing up?
All choice.
All choices? Well, that's really general. It's kind of hard to have a conversation on it generally.
Yeah, I generally want people to have opportunity to choose in most facets of their life within the bounds of the code of law of America, I suppose. Yeah, I want women to have all of the choices that men have.
And there are two choices that women don't have now. Men do not have more rights than I do.
Yeah, as a thanks to feminism, which is why I attached the second piece of
feminism of the 1950s, not feminism of today, where they are basically taking my rights. If I'm a young athlete and they're making me play sports against men, biological men, that is not fair. That is not for a woman.
But don't you get to
choose
whether you're there?
Putting a man into my restroom and making me change in front of them is not pro women.
I think it's
very. That I have to
I get it. Trans people bad.
Well, you keep cutting me off. I just think it's gone so far, and it has hurt women. It has made us sadder. More women are depressed, and we need to start supporting the families. Our children need us. They don't need to be raised in daycare with DEI. They need family values.
Okay, I'm just gonna, I don't know why we're going into DEI right now. I think it's very telling that the strongest rebuttal to feminism is just trans people existing. I don't think that that's a rebuttal. Fourth wave intersectionalism, feminism, for example,
women.
It acknowledges, about women, right? And some of the conversation is about what women is, but other conversations are about things like, for example, when somebody is really understanding and empathetic, like a teacher or a nurse, they don't get the social respect. And they don't get viewed as doing a noble thing in the same way that a guy who can make a lot of money gets social respect. That would be a part of feminism, intersectional feminism, where we go, these traits that we societally view as feminine are never viewed as respect-worthy when they're deeply, deeply beautiful and respect-worthy. That's an element of fourth wave feminism that's being massively pushed by a lot of black writers. They're talking about how a mother, everyone loves their mom, but the respect for motherhood, nobody understands the level of absolute, utter self-sacrifice and dying to self that motherhood has to look like, but also the fact that our society has told mothers that they must do this, that if you're a mother only, right? And so many women, my mom is struggling with this right now. Her kids have left the home. Her entire identity, she's been told, was her kids. And the reality is she's like, I don't know who I am outside of my children. It's the most sad thing ever. These are parts of choice, right? So when I say choice, I agree that legally women, by and large, have same legal choices. I think abortion is probably the last final fight that we need to wrestle through. However, when it comes to social stigma and pressure, women are often still given scripts of who we ought to be. And when we step outside of those bounds, society goes, I'm not sure about that. You're kind of being a bad woman. A bad woman.
Well, I did want to say I do appreciate some of your points, because I think that you're willing to address the elephant in the room where it is so true. With traditional women like myself, I'm a stay-at-home mom, I homeschool my kids, and I remember when me and my group of friends were all having kids, they're just kind of so what now? What are you doing? When is your kid going in daycare? And just what is your job? And I was like, but this is what I want. Like, this is what I want, and it shouldn't be seen as oppression. But speaking of choice, I feel like you mentioned kind of like in the 80s and 90s, like the empowerment of this woman going into the workforce. I feel like it was almost like propagandized. Like, you have choice. You saw the commercials with the women with the biggest shoulder pads in the world and the power suits, and it was like, this is fierce womanhood. This is what you should aspire to. Fierce shoulder pads. Yeah, so I feel like a lot of women were kind of wrapped up in that, and obviously, like you said, looked down upon for like, what if I just do want to bake bread? Like, what's so bad about that? And so I think that in a way, there has been these different iterations and evolutions of feminism that have, to me as a conservative, as a modest, Christian who believes in traditional values, I'm just like, what's happening with this, and when does it end? It feels like it doesn't end, and it just keeps evolving. And that's, I think, for people who are conservative, that's the scary thing for us, is like, how far are you willing to keep going when it keeps changing into something?
This is actually a really, really good point. Feminism is a philosophy. Philosophy doesn't. Neither does feminism, because technology is always updating and changing. The way women interface with the world around them, what feminine means at any given culture, is always changing. That's why it doesn't go away. In the same way that men and masculinity and their understands of their place in life as a man will always be updating and changing. And I think that that's a beautiful thing.
Do you ever feel off at night, like you're going to bed tired, but yet somehow waking up even more tired? For me,
if they wanted to support regime change, particularly, I mean regime change. Next prompt is Trump doesn't care to free Iran.
Israeli.
Yes. Mossad, baby. Yes. I'm Marion.
I'm Shiva Bagari.
I'm Maddie.
Nice to meet you guys. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty simple. I think my argument would come down to, if we thought about what would I do, what would anyone reasonably do as a president if they wanted to support regime change? Because when I say free Iran, I mean regime change, obviously, right? The Ayatollah was the most evil ever. Nobody likes the Ayatollah.
Some questions regarding the match.
My hope when Trump was moving on is that he would help free the people. And there are ways to do that. He would employ things like the Green Berets, which their entire modus operandi is helping locals throw off tyranny.
Thanks, that's all.
But instead, he has been apparently rushing to bomb them because of Israel. They didn't establish any communication, right? And so what we see instead is somebody ushering in what might inevitably become a sectarian war, which seems to me as somebody who's more interested in destabilizing the region than actually helping the Iranian people.
I would say blaming this on Israel is absolutely ludicrous. This idea that Trump rushed into this because of Israel, when you take into consideration that he had actually talked to Israel and gotten them to stop bombing Iran during the 12-day war, bringing this to a temporary end before it just went up in flames again. Because ignoring evil, taking a soft approach to evil is never going to stop it. It's never going to free it. Right now, Trump, in his second term as well as in his first term, made amazing strides towards freeing Iran. In fact, he was the first U.S. president to even recognize the IRGC as a terrorist organization. Meanwhile, you had Democrat presidents such as Barack Hussein Obama that was releasing billions of dollars to the IRGC. You had Joe Biden, who not only released billions of dollars, but also released to them a spy in a negotiation that went absolutely horrifically wrong for us the month before October 7th. So Trump wants to free the Iranian people, but he wants to empower them to go in and do it by taking out these military opponents. And that's exactly what we're witnessing right now.
So if he wants to free the Iranian people, why on January 2nd did he tweet, if Iran shoots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which their custom is, the USA will come to their rescue. We are locked, loaded, and ready to go. That was January 2nd. But we didn't get there until February 28th. Do you know how many Iranians died?
Yes, a lot of Iranians died.
How
but
many?
Well, now it's about 80,000 that have died total.
Just from that tweet, how many died?
I don't know the number.
30,000.
Okay, so I'm from Iran originally, okay? And yeah, we wanted it quick, but when you're doing military, strategic, yeah, thank you. For some reason, I'm having a brain fart. When you are strategic and doing things, you have to, it's all timing, okay? And it's all.
Why make that tweet at that time? Why not wait until you're
because
actually ready to
he's
go?
letting them know. So the thing about Trump is he gives them an olive branch to do the right thing, which is what he always does. Here's an olive branch. I'm going to do this. if you guys don't stop your nonsense. He gave them some time, because otherwise then the liberals are going to scream and have their rallies, which they always do, because they're paid. We all know that, you know, Neville, Roy Singham, and well, see, I get to talk now. It's my turn. So you please stop talk blocking me. Okay, give me a second to respond to this, because it's my turn.
Just stay on the prompt.
I'm staying on the prompt, but all this makes sense. Okay, all of this is connected. We've got the heiress of Walmart funding these No Kings rallies. We've got Neville Roy Singham also funding these rallies. The real rallies are the ones at the federal building. Have you been there with the Iranian people? Have you been there? Because we're all happy. Us Iranians, you don't speak for us. I was born there. My family lives there. You don't speak for us. We are very happy with President Trump. We're very happy.
There's many Iranians that are angry.
No, there's not many Iranians. There is. That's a lie. We are sick. Us Iranian people. My half sister lives there. My family lives there. We're sick of white liberals telling us about Iran and its people. We love Benjamin Netanyahu and we love President Trump for what they did. They want to name cities after these people in Iran. So please don't speak for us. And what he did was strategic, because with military operations, they have to have a structure and a plan. You don't go and do something and not know what you're doing. You have to have a plan. You have to have intelligence to know where to hit, you know, so they don't hit places that have a lot of civilians. So you're thinking in a very irrational way, okay? He thinks in a very rational way. That's why when he took down those nuclear facilities, not a single casualty, okay? It takes time to do that. Otherwise, you do kill a lot of civilians.
Okay, there's a lot there. I don't think my race has anything to do with this conversation, respectfully.
Yes, it does.
I don't think it does, right? I've talked to Diane extensively. I've been very heavily interested and passionate about specifically Iran since October 7th to Israel. Actually, I've talked to officials in these lands. So the idea that I'm just like in some bubble and I have no idea what I'm talking about, and you assuming that because of my skin, is
no, you blamed Israel.
Simultaneously, there are two things that can be true. The Iranian people are delighted to see the evils of the Ayatollah punished and him killed and his leaders killed and them decimated. That's true, and I stand with it. I have no problem with the strikes that killed the Ayatollah. I think they are only good because he needed to die, and the people had been trying for years to free themselves, but you can't when they have guns and weapons and chemical gases and sticks and stones. So my empathy towards Iran being so excited at the hope of change is completely valid. My frustration is only with Trump. And the issue is that if you want regime change, we have the techniques for that. We already have this. Do you know what the motto of the Green Berets is? Does anybody know? It's De Oppressor Libere, to free the oppressed. The entire purpose of the Green Berets, the core mission is called unconventional warfare. They go into local populations, empower them to fight tyranny. One of the issues facing Iran right now, because of the way that he managed the strikes, is that there's no way to politicize the people. There's no internet, there's no person, and they still have no weapon. If this was something Trump wanted, the American military could have achieved this. But instead, he sent out an errant tweet 2 months before an invasion, which led the people thinking that help was coming soon. It came 2 months later. If you wanted to be tactical and smart, if you wanted to free the Iranians, you'd make that tweet 2 days before you kill the Ayatollah, so that if the uprisings are coming up, you can send in Green Berets to support them, and you can mobilize the population to take back the country.
So, here's the thing about the timeline that you're speaking about, right? One thing you haven't mentioned is the fact that Trump met with the leaders of Iran 2 days before the strikes, okay? Trying yet again to reach another peace treaty with them, and they just are not negotiable.
Well, push me.
Okay. Agreed, yes, but the Trump administration, right?
Did the negotiations end, or did they strike before the ending window of the negotiations? Do you know?
I'm not 100% sure.
So
but
they gave
I
2
would
weeks
say
for negotiation, and they struck in the middle of it.
Well, from my understanding, they were meeting up until the Thursday before that strike, okay? The other thing to acknowledge is that what you're saying is they should have sent people into the ground, the Green Berets, to go into the ground and help the people. We're talking about a tyrannical regime. If you think that these people, our side, would get into the place where they can actually reach the people without extreme opposition, you're making things up.
No, this is what the
getting rid of their ability to fight back, right? Stunting them first is a good thing for the Iranian people. It gives them, even if they don't have someone right now to jump in and take over. Look at what happened in Venezuela, right? We took out Maduro and then
reestablished the regime. Yes,
exactly. So
that's bad, actually.
I agree, but I agree. My point is, we can't assume that taking away one leader and doing it calmly and peacefully will give the everyday people the chance to immediately rise up. When we hit them hard and we hit them to a total desecrated place, at the very least, they're too stunned to retaliate against their people.
Are you saying that you don't believe the Green Berets can do what the Green Berets were trained to do? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely not. I completely support our military.
So you're saying there's no way they can
swing. I'm saying that Iran is a very specific case. I think we need to widen the respect of how
Afghanistan, Iraq, most other countries. We have Green Berets. We have Green Berets. We have Green Berets everywhere that we're trying to do this type of work in. Why can't they get what makes Iran impenetrable in a way that China or Russia or North Korea?
So I think you're missing the full point here. Okay, the war in Iraq. When we did do regime change, we took Saddam. I was against the war in Iraq. You know who else was against the war in Iraq? Israel. You know what they said back then? Iran was always the bigger threat. Saddam was the manageable. It's not about regime change. It's not about just killing the heads up and saying we have our new guy. Iran is far more complicated. And what you're failing to understand is that the Middle East does not respond to diplomacy. It responds to deterrence. It responds to an element of surprise. Hold on. The other thing you are failing not to acknowledge is that former adversaries like Bahrain, like the UAE, are actually helping Israel. Excuse me. Israel is an ally of America. These are the shared enemies. Iran openly says death to America. First Saturday, the Jews, then Sunday, the Christians. So to say this is for Israel, no. A strong America is a strong ally in Israel. This is a strategic situation. This is not a war. We're only several weeks in. This is all minutia. Trump is a strategic guy. He plays chess, not checkers. He literally said 4 to 5 weeks, give me. You haven't even given him that. I trust Trump. I trust his track record. I trust the 12-day war of Operation Midnight Hammer. I trust they was able to bring back all 20 hostages and ended the Gaza war. I trust so much of his track record with the Abraham Accords that he knows what he's doing.
So if you talk to most Israeli officials, diplomacy is essential to peace. Why do they have relationships with Egypt? Aggressive economic relationships. That's what they pursue. Bahrain as well, UAE. Aynafla is a very important diplomat. I've spoken with her extensively. You've got multiple diplomats that will tell you that peace will get established in the Middle East, dominantly through economic trade. Because Iran. I agree, not with Iran. But I've never said that I'm opposed to the killing of the Ayatollah. What I have said here specifically is that I care about Iran genuinely being free. And my fear, my belief is that Trump doesn't. He just cares about it being destabilized, because a destabilized Iran achieves America's same goal. It reduces the oil going to China, and it reduces the amount of ability for them to support things like Hezbollah and the Houthis, right? But I care about genuinely having regime change. You're right, regime change often fails. But we know actually why regime change has often failed, because it's also succeeded in the past. We have South Korea, we have Japan, we have all of the Eastern Bloc. So regime change has been successful by American Green Berets in the past.
With countries who don't want to kill us.
Japan didn't kill the U.S.? Oh, wait, oh, shoot.
I think that it's interesting that you used Afghanistan as an example, rather, when Afghanistan was a catastrophic failure and the abysmal pullout by President Joe Biden left 13 of our service members deceased, I believe. So that's a strange thing to use as an example of what
an example of bad.
Yeah, then maybe I misunderstood you, because you were citing it as an example of regime change by America.
No, not as a good example. I said that there's types of regime changes. There's been unsuccessful and successful ones. Okay. Afghanistan is a good example of an unsuccessful regime change.
That's not what it sounded like you were saying.
Okay, but, yeah, I can clarify.
With Syria, we could look and see what happened. We have Jolani, who's a terrorist in a suit that came in and took over. So you have to be very careful about how you're operating, especially when you're in the Middle East, about not creating a power vacuum where these bad actors can intentionally step in. So having military on the ground, American military on the ground, potentially creates this opportunity where there'd be long-term American occupation, which is something most Americans are against, and we don't need it. President Trump said back in 2020 in an interview with the Washington Post that his main goal when it comes to Iran is freeing the Iranian people, but he wants to do that through empowering them, which is what they've been asking for. We have to understand that when you're dealing with complex military issues like this, you're not going to be privy to all of the information. We don't know exactly which one's planning. We don't know the timelines. We know certain things like Khomeini.
I know I don't doom 30,000 protesters to death and come in 2
Great. So those protesters were already dying from the very start when President Trump had gotten involved and said that help was on the way, and he meant it, and he delivered on that promise. But we have to understand that when you're dealing with an intense military operation like that,
you can't tweet 2 months later. You have to tweet now.
You have to line up everything to be precise.
How is the tweet
when you
lined
have
up?
a terrorist rat? When you have a terrorist rat hiding in a tunnel like Khomeini, you have to find out exactly where he is. You have to make sure that you're not going to be jeopardizing a large amount of civilian casualties. You have to make sure that the American military is prepared. Israel had to reinforce their air defense system because we know that Iran was going to attack their civilians, which they have been, causing a mass casualty event yesterday because Iran targets civilians, and Israel needed to be prepared for that, as did our other allies, like we saw with the Strait of Hormuz. So I understand that you live in this. I'm not speaking about your life. I'm understanding that from your mentality, you seem to think that you could snap your fingers and free Iran. It doesn't work like that.
Okay, nobody here has ever said for a second that this would be simple. Let me tell you about regime change that fails and succeeds, because the theory has it. You need a strong middle class and high-educated populace and psychological will. Guess what Iran did? All of those things. Guess what Iraq and Afghanistan didn't have? Any of those things. Also, why it didn't work in Afghanistan is because we didn't work with local populations. We didn't send in Green Berets nearly quick enough. And when we did, there was major successful pushes of the Taliban. The problem with the regime change is that we pulled out the Green Berets and sent in people who can't do what they do. Okay? If you have this tactical mind, I agree, there's all these complexities. You need to understand all of the details that go into war. There's no justification for sending a tweet promising help 2 months before it comes. It is unjustified. Fundamentally, there's no good reason for it. And you can't use the God of the gap like, well, I'm sure he had a reason. I'll let that 30,000 dead. Hello. Notice, my next prompt is Christianity is liberal. Tish. Eden. Nice to meet you guys. So what I mean by this more specifically, because I wanted to have a really succinct prompt, but obviously this is a complicated topic. I don't actually think God is any political branch, obviously. I think liberalism is in the direction of what God wants. I think it's more in his direction, which is why I say Christianity is liberal. But obviously God is well beyond. He's well beyond any political system. Okay. Define liberalism. Yeah, so by liberalism I mean protection of equality of rights and liberties of people, strong institutions that separate balances of power, and a strong social safety network.
So when you look into the actual definition of liberalism, the number one value is individuality. And then on top of it, we have intersectionality. And what is really confusing about the concept of Christianity being liberal, or just the overall idea that God himself is more aligned with liberal values, is the entire Bible. The whole gospel is repent and surrender yourself to the leadership of Christ. So there is no individualism in Christianity. We are now his. We are now slaves to righteousness, right? Liberalism tells people, do whatever you want and we'll support it. We need all of this diversity of thought, and that's a good thing. Instead, Christianity says you need to be of one mind. There shouldn't be this bickering in between you, and you are no longer your own self. Now you are to, what does it say? There you go, but you have to carry your cross, deny yourself. Liberalism says celebrate yourself. So how do you respond to this? I think they're just at complete opposites.
I would say, so it feels like you're baking in maybe progressive cultural stuff.
I literally Googled what are the liberal values.
No liberal would say intersection. So as a Muslim, we would say intersectionality is it's more associated with progressive movements, right? Liberals can like it, but it's not the same thing. So when I'm talking about liberalism, I'm talking about rights and freedoms, like equal before law, all these types of things, and liberties, like you should have access to the things that you would like to access. I'm talking about strong institutions because they protect civilians, they protect people, they keep things equal and fair, ideally, and a welfare net to take care of our vulnerable and our most needed, right? He said that the Bible is about surrender. As a Christian, our walk of faith is about surrender to Christ. It's about constantly seeking him above our own predilections, constantly. But what does he command us to act out into the world? What does he tell us to do to non-Christians? It is to care for the refugee. It is to take care of the widow and the orphan, right? In the previous conversation, we were talking extensively about Christianity is the burgeoning place of charity, of seeing others outside of my blood-born family and saying, you matter in the eyes of God, and we love you for that. And my concern right now is that the conservative movement, particularly under Trump, and the way that Christian conservatives operate, there is a fixation on sin, and there is a loss and forgetfulness of what it means to be equal before God.
We just grab a minute of your time for a few questions.
I just want to know, and I promise I will put it to you, but the thing that comes to my mind is, people constantly talk about taking care of the poor, and I firmly believe in that, right? Like I founded a nonprofit, okay? So I've done my work. However, the Bible says, let he who does not work not eat. And what we on the conservative side have noticed is that our social systems have been abused by people who do not want to work. So I think my frustration is to suggest that it is that we should lean more towards liberalism as Christians just because of this concept of helping others, and ignore the fact that the Bible says you need to also be a contributing member of society so that it all works together. We don't have takers and givers.
When God said, he who does not work shall not eat, he's probably not talking about kids, right?
Children can't work. What do you mean?
But we should still feed them, right?
Right.
Of course. And if somebody has no legs and is blind and deaf, okay, should we take care of that person? Should a mentally ill person be taken care of?
I don't think that the Conservative Party would suggest that we don't take care of those people. What we are saying is that
we're stripping Medicaid.
Because our system, we're not stripping it. We're telling people that if you are not one of those people that you suggested, if you're not actually in need, then it is unfair for you to be receiving these
60% of people who receive
of
SNAP
the others
are
that
children.
should.
I just want to add, these things, taking care of the widows, taking care of the orphans, this was prescribed to the church. This was not prescribed to the government.
Exactly.
Sure, but I would add to here, Christianity isn't a prescription of politics at all. Jesus wasn't political. The Jews killed him. No, he was not. He
created content for people in the public square. He totally said that.
That free speech is not so. Participating in free speech is not the same thing as being a messianic king who restores Judea and Samaria, which is what the Jews wanted him to do. And he rejected doing that. He consistently, every time actual political office is offered to him, he rejects
that wasn't his calling, babe.
It's none of our callings. You're right. It's none of our callings.
That's why he called the church to be the facilitators of these things. I agree.
A state can't
pick this up and do it, but it's not the government's obligation.
What if it wants to? Is that okay?
The government wants to. Everybody disagrees.
Well,
that's why we see so much fraud in the debt that she keeps talking about.
We voted in welfare institutions. Do you have a problem with that?
I just want you to talk about loving children. I mean, loving people and everything. We do love Christians do, and churches do love people, and they love moms. That's why they fight for the unborn. I don't believe that a liberal. They have abortions. They are not pro-life. They have abortions all the time. Yeah, and that's something that a Christian does not do. So I don't. When you say a Christian should not. Yes,
but Christians will kick out their trans and queer kids, whereas liberal, non-Christian parents embrace them and love their children.
Because now you're easing into what is love, right? We know on this side we're talking about
rejecting your child is love.
No, corrective love is love.
Rejecting your child is love.
Affirming is not love. Affirming.
Well, you have to believe in a trans kid. I believe God created us man and woman. And I do think just like anorexia nervosa, it's a mental illness. Gender was always been a mental illness. But now we're being told to affirm them. now it's almost become a trend in the schools, just like it was when I was a kid and everybody was dressing up like Madonna. The whole thing where, the DEI, where if you are a white boy in school, you are an oppressor and the minorities are the oppressed. Well, where can that kid turn? Well, if I become trans, then I'm oppressed too.
Who do you think is more socially stigmatized? A random white guy walking around?
Toxic masculinity.
Yeah, I just want to say, Christianity says God defines truth. Liberalism says man defines truth. And that's just to bring it back to the front.
Christianity is about 6 books of the Bible, loving man, loving people.
Sorry,
Okay.
are we opposed
And
to
it's
liberal political order then? Because liberal political order isn't Christian politically?
We are all
Jesus is a Democrat
or Republican.
I've already said this, but I've said liberalism. So you said, well, it says liberalism says that the value of man is in man alone. The founding fathers said.